My name is Dr. Jack Lewis. I'm a neuroscientist, and I'm on a journey to understand everything there is to know about the human brain. The human brain is the most complex part of our body. Many mysteries remain about how this most vital of vital organs controls every aspect of our lives. But over the last few decades, our knowledge has expanded in leaps and bounds.
That was a shock to the system.
Now we're getting ready to push it to the limits, finding out how our brains react to unusual conditions and surprising challenges.
This is the strangest experience of my life.
Let's do it. I'm setting out on a journey. A journey to meet some people with remarkable neurological conditions.
One of the most common questions is, how is it wired to your brain?
That give us a unique insight into the inner workings of the brain.
I discovered people who are able to remember almost every day of their life.
In this episode, we'll mess with your mind and explore the mysterious origins of creativity in our brains. I'll meet a man who, after a severe brain trauma, discovered he had an amazing talent for art.
Prior to the illness, I had no interest in art whatsoever. And here I am all these years later.
I'll discover a surprisingly successful way to tap into your own creativity. Down the hatch! And give these people the inspiration to solve some fiendishly tricky tasks. Plus, with the help of magician Pete Heat, read the creative minds of some unsuspecting members of the public.
3, 2, 1.
What's going on deep inside your head? Join me to uncover the secrets of the brain.
Chin chin.
From painting a picture to building a skyscraper, from knitting your own sweater to blasting off into outer space, so much of what's most impressive about what we humans can do comes down to our incredible diverse creativity. And somehow, it all comes out of our amazing brains. To begin our journey into our creative brains, Pete the Magician has a trick that gets right to the heart of what creativity is. Our ability to generate our own unique ideas.
Would either of you two describe yourselves as creative, do you think? Yeah?
Yeah.
You'd say so? Yeah? So you're creative, you'd say. Good, perfect. Because I'd like you to create an image, but in your head. But ideally, it would be something random and something just that there's no way I could know that you would go for. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, cool. And have you got something already?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. You want to change your mind? You're happy with that?
No.
You're happy? Okay. All right, I want you to picture whatever it is that you're picturing, and I want you to, in your head, to make that image really big and clear. So look at me. Okay. It is quite a big image, isn't it? It's not like something, okay. I'm going to get you to draw, for real this time, an image of what you're picturing in your head, okay? And just let me know when you're done, really. Okay. So let's turn our backs now. Okay. And I want you to start drawing now. I've instantly got a picture in my head, so I hope this is right. How are you doing? Are you near?
Finished.
You finished already? Yeah. Okay, cool. I think I'm finished as well. Hold your drawing against your chest so that when you turn around, I can't see what it is, okay?
Right, yes.
And then turn to face me again, okay? All right, so you're committed to a drawing.
Yeah.
On 3, I'm going to get you to turn it and show me what you're drawing, and I'll do the same. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, God!
It was just really strange and weird how I had created an image in my mind, and there was no way that he could have known, but he created the same image in his own mind and put it down on paper. I don't know how he did that. I have no idea. I'm a bit freaked out.
I don't know why he can do it. Yeah, it's so great. I was convinced that he wasn't going to guess what it was that I had been drawing, because it was a completely abstract image and it was something that would be quite hard for someone to guess. But then when he turned it around and it looked so similar to my image, I was just completely and utterly blown away.
The reason those people were stunned by Pete's magic trick is that anytime we're asked to create something, even something as basic as a simple line drawing, we feel like whatever we dream up is our own original idea, selected from an infinity of possibilities. Then when somebody creates something more or less identical, well, that leaves us completely bamboozled. Science is only just starting to understand creativity in the human brain, but clues to its origin can lie with people who have extraordinary things going on in theirs. People like Alan Brown, who until 12 years ago would never have even considered stepping into an art gallery. Alan was a family man with a 9-to-5 job in the building trade until a freak neural episode changed everything. I'm on my way to meet him to find out how he went from there to a life ignited by a newfound passion for fine art. Hello, Alan.
Hi there.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. 2003, suffered from a headache for 12 months, 18 months. It turned out to be a brain aneurysm and it had erupted.
So it ended up being a hemorrhage? From aneurysm to hemorrhage?
Yes.
Oh dear.
I can remember I was taken to Oxford, to the Radcliffe. The guy came down to me then and said, I'm ever so sorry, but it's quite a complicated rupture. So I had an open brain surgery, 16 hours.
The trauma left Alan paralysed down one side, but he was lucky to be alive. And that's when his life changed.
Prior to the illness, I had no interest in art whatsoever. No, to be honest with you, I'd never even been in an art gallery prior to this.
And what did you do? What did you do for a living, for instance, before you had the...
Double glazing. I ran a double glazing company for 20 years.
Is there much art in that?
No art at all.
When the doctors performed brain surgery on Alan, they may have thought they were just saving his life. But following the op, something else changed. His creativity had been unleashed.
This nurse came by and she looked me right in the eye and said, "Art, that's what you need, young man.
Really?
Art." And I thought, oh God, no. And I politely told her, no, thank you. I've got enough problems. My exact response was, I don't do art, thank you very much. But she kept on and she returned again and again until the one day she came in with clutching a pencil and a pad. She pulled out this photograph of her pet dog and said, "Have a go at drawing that." Well, I don't mind admitting my abilities at the time to do a dog was something simple like that. It was basically just a little sausage dog. That was my ability. But 30 minutes later, I'm clutching this drawing and it was perfect.
Oh, really?
It was absolutely perfect. I couldn't believe it.
Amazingly, this moment led Alan to discover a talent and love for art he'd never experienced before.
Suddenly I had this interest in art. I thought, oh, yeah, I'm going to take this up and have a look. The first painting, I can remember thinking, this feels good, this is making me feel good inside this. You know, I could really, it really cheered me up. And it went from there, I just got more and more interested in it. So I went on to the next level and ended up graduating from university.
Really? You went all the way to university level?
Yeah. I thought, well, this is it. Art is my passion. I really was getting a passion for it. And I took the lease on this place, spent all the money I had left on a lot of paintings, and opened the door.
Great.
And here I am all these years later. So and everything's possible.
Alan's brain trauma was extremely severe, but at the same time, he'd also experienced an incredible transformation.
I'm happier now than I was before. If I knew then what I know now, I would have stopped. I would have gone into something more creative. be it painting or music, pottery, whatever. You need to find what gets your heart racing, that you know, the adrenaline pumping, that exciting. That feeling you get Christmas Day when you're opening your presents, that kind of excitement.
So what actually happened in Alan's brain to cause this extraordinary change? We'll join him again later as he finally gets some answers.
This part of the brain allows us to plan, decide, and most importantly, control.
And find out how we might all have an innate creativity deep within our brains.
Some inhibitions that usually hold us back from trying things out are lifted.
Creativity is one of the least well understood human abilities. There are so many different ways to be creative. It makes pinning it down in the brain incredibly difficult.
Creativity is one of the least understood human abilities. Traditionally, we think of creativity as being artistic, but that's not the only creative thing that we do. We go to the moon. We create amazing buildings. We think of new ways to explain things to people. That is all creativity. And that's why it's so difficult for us to define it and then for us to be able to explain it and work out what's happening in the brain.
In essence, creativity is our fundamental drive for newness. Thinking up a new way to do something or a novel method of solving a problem takes creativity. Here's a test of your brain's creative problem-solving ability. By moving just 2 matches, create an extra square. 5 squares in total instead of 4. Here's the secret. These are the 2 matches you need to reposition. Use one to create a lid for this square. Use the other to create a base to this square. Woohoo! Et voila, 5 squares instead of 4. While you were solving that puzzle, a flurry of activity was going on inside your head. But rather than it being exclusively a creative surge in just one part of the brain, there was actually a complex chain reaction happening in a number of different neural networks. The 2 hemispheres, the left and right halves of the brain, are often mentioned when people talk about creativity. So now I want to delve deeper into what that actually means. This is a model of the human brain. This is the front, this is where your eyeballs would be, and over here is the back. Now, as you can see, it's divided into 2 hemispheres. You've got the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, which on the surface of it look identical. But in actual fact, there are various jobs which one or other side of the brain is either partly or fully responsible for. For example, there's a strip here on the left hemisphere which controls the right side of the body, and this mirror image strip controls the left side of the body. The same thing goes for your senses. Anything in the right side of space will cross to the left side of the brain. Anything from the left side of space will cross to the right side of the brain. Here's a test that'll get both hemispheres of your brain working really hard. Hold one of your hands like this. Then move it in a big circle away from you. With your other hand, try to do a similar movement but in the opposite direction. Tricky, isn't it? The reason this is so hard is because your brain has to issue 2 conflicting commands at the same time. One from the left side of your brain, the other from the right. The command from your left hemisphere seems to fight the one from the right hemisphere, and one hand ends up copying the other. Something else that's often said to happen more on one side of the brain than the other is creativity. And that creative people are more right side brain dominant than everyone else. But is this really true? I want to find out how the brain really does do creativity. You might have seen this optical illusion before. It claims to reveal whether you're right-brained or left-brained, and therefore creative or not. All you have to do is judge whether the figure is spinning clockwise or anti-clockwise. If it looks like it's going clockwise, then supposedly you rely more on the right-hand creative side of your brain. If it's going anti-clockwise, you're meant to be left-side dominant and a more analytical person. So can this simple test really offer such a revealing insight into our brains? In fact, the latest research suggests that it could be a huge misconception that creativity is exclusively confined to one side of the brain, whilst being analytical is the job of the other. The hemispheres simply don't work in isolation. They're constantly talking to each other every moment of every day and form a very tight system. There's also a misconception that our personalities are somehow governed more by one side of the brain than the other. The truth is, each side does have a few of its own jobs, but neither is the absolute boss. To look into where in the brain one particular aspect of creativity might originate, I've got some more mind-bending problems up my sleeve. I want to investigate the initial flash of insight we get when we solve a problem. That light bulb moment that can kick off a chain reaction of creativity. Okay, Tom, it's a really simple pub puzzle. The aim of the game is to get these 9 bottle caps in a triangular formation just like this, but instead of it pointing towards me, it points towards you. And to get there, you're only allowed to move 3 bottle caps and let you concentrate. The challenge is to invert the triangle by moving just 3 bottle tops. Relax your mind and just see what comes to you. When we're more relaxed, the brain enters a state that can highlight things we tend to overlook. Just a few minutes later, and the pennies dropped. Oh yeah, good man. Did you solve it? If not to worry. Perhaps some more practical problems more up your street. You're allowed to touch the banknote, you're not allowed to touch the bottle, and once you've found the solution, you'll have removed the banknote and the bottle will be exactly where it is. You can use whatever means you like, you can touch the banknote as much as you want in any way you like, but do not touch the bottle. Let's give it a go. As we ponder a tricky problem, our brains conjure up a series of possible solutions, which we can test one by one until, hopefully, one rings true. Of course, it might take a while. Before it smashes, that's not the solution. You're not getting anywhere. All it takes is one promising lead, and we have that elusive light bulb moment. Different technique. He's invented a solution that never previously existed in his brain. Wicked. You've won yourself a tenner. Yes. Now it's time for a much more difficult problem that'll help us find out where in our brain that light bulb moment of creative insight happens. Okay, Letty, so this is a simple pub challenge. You got 2 glasses of matchstick and a bottle cap. Your job is to free the bottle cap. You're allowed to move the glasses, but you're not allowed to move the matchstick. The matchstick has to stay there up in the air. There's no time limit, take as long as you like.
Okay, so presumably just doing that isn't going to work.
This could take a long time to figure out analytically, but I want to see if I can give Letty a sudden flash of creative insight using word clues on these screens. We're going to get you to look at these screens. I'm going to get you to stare at the cross in the middle of the screens, and you have to keep your eyes pointing at that, and then we're going to display some words in your peripheral vision. You won't be able to read them if you're staring at the cross, but don't worry about it. Okay?
Okay, yeah, okay.
Good stuff. All right, off we go. We're displaying these words in the periphery of Letty's field of vision. First, over on the right of centre. Okay, so just keep your eyes on that cross. Not all the words are real clues. Some are irrelevant. But will any of them inspire Letty to crack that matchstick puzzle?
Ooh, close.
Evidently not. But let's see what happens when I play the same clue words on the left of Letty's field of vision. A curious feature of our brains is that whatever side we see something on, it's initially processed by the opposite hemisphere of the brain. So, visual information coming in from our right-hand side goes into the left hemisphere. Visual information on our left initially goes to the right hemisphere. But here's the thing. Our moments of creative inspiration tend to occur on one side of the brain more than the other. The right side, corresponding to what we see over in our left field of view. So how inspiring will the clue words have been this time?
Can I use the matchbox?
Yes, you can.
Oh.
It's good, it's good. I like your thinking. Yeah! Well done. Great work, Letty. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Playing the cue words on the left seems to have successfully inspired a moment of creative insight. So tell me, how did it come to you, like a sort of moment, bolt out of the blue, or did you sort of work it out sequentially?
No, it just suddenly came to me.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Nice one. Well, thanks for your help.
Pleasure, thank you.
Cheers. Studies have found that visual clues are effective when presented on the left, but not the right, again and again. So if you're looking for that flash of inspiration to kickstart a whirlwind of creativity, one strategy you might wish to try is moving your head ever so slightly to one side so that more of the relevant information is coming in from the left side of space. That will of course go across to the right side of the brain, which could be just the ticket for triggering that elusive eureka moment. So far, in our journey of creativity into the human brain, we've met a man who had an extraordinary artistic awakening. We've also found out that our two brain hemispheres don't work in isolation of each other. However, it does seem that our light bulb or eureka moments start over on the right-hand side. Still to come, I'll find a surprising way to access my own creativity. But first, Pete the Magician has been messing with people's ability to creatively deceive him.
Would you guys describe yourselves as creative?
I would like to describe myself as creative in an ideal world.
Yeah, okay.
I dabble.
You dabble in creativity. All right, okay. Yes, all of you, brilliant. Okay, and is that something you all do at work, or is it quite a creative job that you're in, or you're just
We're just creative.
You're just creative.
Naturally
Outside of that. That's brilliant. Okay, we're going to play a little game involving your hands. Okay, and you got a chance to win some big money.
Thanks.
I'm going to get you to put your hands behind your back, and basically, you're going to put the coin in either one of your hands. You can change your mind as many times as you want, make it difficult for me.
Pete's told his volunteers to give away no clues about which hand they've hidden the coin in. Seems straightforward enough.
Now, I know, obviously, that you're right-handed because you've just told me. Now, I think that you probably wouldn't have gone for the right hand because you know that I know that. You probably would have gone for the left hand to start with, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, brilliant, that's it? Okay, great, okay. And I think it is in this hand this time, actually, is that right? Yes, brilliant, okay.
But when asked to hide the coin a second time, what would have been a simple decision now involves a creative thought process. How to outwit Pete.
Now this time, the temptation would be, so obviously it was in your left hand last time, right? The temptation would be to switch it over to your right hand, but I think maybe because because that would seem like an obvious thing to do, I think you would have probably done a double bluff and actually stuck with it in the same hand again. Is that right? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, cool. All right. I think you would have ended up with this hand over here. Is that right? Yeah. Yes, brilliant. Okay, cool. So this hand is... Yeah.
Try as they might, their internal creative dialogue is somehow being given away to Pete.
I think it is in this hand. Yes, okay.
In a way they're not even aware of themselves.
So I think it is in this hand this time, actually. Is that right? Yes, brilliant. Okay.
At least that's how it seems to them.
I'm taking that back.
I was trying really hard not to give anything away, but it wasn't working. It's like, yeah, that's obviously in your left hand. Clearly, I'm not as good a liar as I thought I was.
I think when he was doing the trick, I was kind of thinking about what he would be thinking about, but it kind of seems like he was thinking the same way, so he kind of figured it out every time.
This magic trick illustrates how even mundane activities can involve a certain degree of creative thought to plan, organise, carry out and justify. So, if we all have creativity built into our brains, what makes some people better than others at expressing themselves creatively? For instance, with art. Earlier, I met Alan, who recovered from a brain trauma and 16 hours of open brain surgery to discover a creative urge he'd never had before.
Suddenly I had this interest in art. I thought, yeah, I'm going to take this up and have a look. The first painting, I can remember thinking, this feels good, this is making me feel good inside this. You know, I could really, it really cheered me up. And it went from there, I just got more and more interested in it.
Alan's never had a scientific explanation for his dramatic artistic awakening, but he's now come to meet neuropsychologist Dr. Ashok Jansari in search of answers.
So now you love your art, do you?
I'm passionate about it.
Any particular form of art?
Painting. I am so into art now, it's difficult to explain the difference before and after.
Well, we refer to it as sudden artistic output, and it's something that can happen after some forms of brain injury, and we don't understand it very well. We think that it's probably to do with the fact that some inhibitions that usually hold us back from trying things out are lifted.
Dr. Jansari suspects Alan's brain might have been affected in regions that govern his inhibitions.
The front of the brain again is rather interesting because this part of the brain, so it allows us to plan, decide, and most importantly, control. It's the thing that allows us to do socially appropriate things, decide not to swear, etc., etc. And when that control is taken away, that can unleash the things that are underneath.
So rather than Alan's brain trauma making him creative out of nowhere, it might have simply taken the handbrake off of a creativity that was always there deep down. This lifting of inhibitions after a brain injury occurred in a famous historic case from the 1840s, involving an American railroad builder called Phineas Gage.
They were laying down railway tracks, and to do that, they needed to have timed explosions to go through the rock faces. But unfortunately, there was an explosion that went off before it should have done, and what happened is a tamping iron, about an inch thick, flew up, went through his cheek, came out the top of his head. Amazingly, he didn't die. Part of that was because the iron bar was so hot as it was going through his face that it sealed a lot of the blood vessels. The remarkable thing was that afterwards Phineas Gage could talk, walk, see, remember, count, do all of those things that we kind of think are very human. And initially, people thought, oh, that bit of the brain in the front can't be that much use. But eventually, they started seeing that Phineas Gage's behaviour had changed remarkably. He went from being a very organised, reliable, financially astute, church-going person to someone who's incredibly unreliable, started doing socially inappropriate things, urinating in public, swearing, etc. And what we've seen over and over again is that when there's damage in certain parts of the front of the brain, we get the same thing happening. And what that tells us is that the front of the brain is the manager, which keeps behaviors down that we wouldn't ordinarily have. And when that is released, we call that a loss of inhibition, which allows you to do the things that usually society tells you not to, or you yourself tell you can't do. And then you're able to experiment.
Alan's brain trauma was much less damaging than Phineas Gage's. But in line with other people with sudden artistic output, his injury may have lifted his inhibitions enough to make him try out art.
Have you found that in other aspects of your life you might be a bit different as well?
Yeah, I mean, the inhibition thing. I went to the Tate in London, and I can remember when it really came home to me how important painting is. I walked into this room and there was a huge canvas on each wall.
Yeah.
It was just so powerful. I just broke down in tears.
Really?
There and then in the middle of the gallery.
I think the fact that you started crying again is that a lack of inhibition. We get programmed in a way, and all of that program is happening here. It's the what I can do, what I can't do, what is appropriate, etc. And that's been released. The inhibition is gone, and it allows you to really go for it.
So, Dr. Jansari thinks that Alan's neural trauma might have triggered this very rare condition known as sudden artistic output. A lifting of the inhibitions that prevent many of us from even trying to be creative in the first place.
Some of the things he was saying, I must admit, did hit home. Since my illness, yeah, I've obviously been looking for answers to questions like that. And I'm convinced now that releasing those inhibitions is the answer to creativity.
So are your thoughts unique? Pete doesn't think so. He's about to attempt to tap into your imagination.
Here's a little experiment you can play along with at home. It should work for most people, so hopefully it works for you. Here's what I want you to do. In your head, I want you to think of two simple shapes, one inside the other. So for example, you could think of a square within a square, except make both of the shapes different to each other, make it more interesting. Okay, so firstly, for the first shape, I want you to try and get an image of that shape in your head now. Got one? And then around that, a second shape. Good. Now, if this has worked, you should be thinking of a triangle and a circle.
We've seen how our brains can prevent us from achieving our full potential. To look even closer at how our brains can block creativity, I want to test out some research done by cognitive scientists. And to do it, I've come to one of the places in Britain best known for the creation of brilliant ideas.
So what are we doing in a pub?
It's been shown that certain creative problem-solving tasks can be improved when you consume alcohol. Alcohol can have an effect on creativity.
And that's why we're in the pub.
And that's why we're in the pub.
So can drinking alcohol really improve our creativity? Catherine Francis, a psychologist from the University of Plymouth, has a series of tests that will help us find out.
So we're going to do a creative problem-solving task now. I'm going to show you 3 words, and I want you to tell me the word that's logically linked to those 3 words. Ready? Let's do it.
So which word fits with aid, rubber and wagon? You can play along at home if you like.
Ban.
Yeah, nice.
Finding the missing linking word tests my brain's ability to create new ideas in my head that weren't there before.
Common.
Yes, well done. Animal, back, rat.
Back, run back? No. I genuinely can't get that. I have no idea.
Okay.
Stone cold sober, I got 2 out of 3 correct. Not bad. Next, as a control test, a non-creative task. Again, without drinking a drop. I have to memorise 5 words, shown one at a time, with a Roman numeral sum to distract me between each one. Let's see if I can recall them all.
It's hungry sewage aquarium addict, and I've missed one behind.
Yes, that was correct.
Great, I'm feeling happy. What's next?
You've done all the tasks now without drinking, so now you're going to drink 1 pint, and we're going to try the test again, and we're going to see how you do on them again.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
Strictly in the name of science, I drink a pint. Unsociably fast, even for me. The alcohol from the beer enters my bloodstream, altering my brain chemistry, changing the tempo with which electrical messages are sent between the neuron.
Some 0.7, what does that mean?
Wow. The study that used this task before actually found that at 0.7 blood alcohol level, you should be at optimal performance for creative problem solving.
I am willing and able and most definitely ready.
Has the beer made me more creative? What's the linking word this time?
Fish, mine, rush.
Gold.
Pie, luck, belly.
Pot.
Change, circuit, bread.
Short.
Excellent.
3 out of 3. On the creativity test, I was better after a bit of booze. Now the control test again, which assesses my non-creative, analytical and memory skills. This time, I can definitely tell it's more difficult.
Oh dear. Industrial was first, furry was last, and in between...
The booze has clearly affected my non-creative skills.
God, that's embarrassing. Okay, so I've done my 1 pint analytical test.
So now we're going to see what happens when your blood alcohol levels get really high.
Well, that sounds good.
So, if 1 pint improved my creativity, will another turn me into a creative genius?
Down the hatch.
I can certainly feel the effects of the alcohol.
Ooh, 1.3.
So now you're well over the driving limit and you're almost double what you were at your optimal stage. So should we find out how you perform now? Sandwich, house, golf.
Ploughman's.
Light, birthday, stick.
Glow? No. Stick party sounds a bit rubbish. Pass. I give up, I have no idea.
Amazingly, just 1 extra pint, and the creativity that was released by the first drink has gone straight down the drain. As for the memory and analytical tests,
badge.
Hopeless.
No idea.
My memory and analytical skills were better when I was sober.
No, what was the one before?
And my brain could pay clear attention to the task. 2 pints of beer clearly does nothing for my brain skills, but the intriguing finding here was my creative performance after just 1 pint.
What's interesting is when you hit that optimal alcohol blood level that we talked about, you actually performed the best. And you got all of them right in the shortest amount of time.
It's thought that because a small amount of alcohol makes us less able to focus and concentrate, it actually allows our unconscious mind to roam free and find the linking word more creatively. Instead of trying to sledgehammer the problem with methodical thought alone. Well, that was a fascinating experiment that really put my brain through its paces. Just a shame for my poor old head the morning after. Here's Pete with an exercise that will create new pathways in your brain as you give it something entirely new to experience. First, cross your legs, right leg over left. Draw a clockwise circle with your toes. Now the tricky bit. With your right hand, draw the number 6 in the air. Now your foot will probably try to change direction, but keep practicing. Your brain has to connect conflicting actions that have probably never been performed together before. It's a similar state to what happens every day when we solve problems or create something new out of our imagination. New pathways are forged in our brain between ideas we'd never connected before. This normally happens without us realizing. But Pete's demo makes the process very obvious. Cheers, Pete. What does the latest neuroscience tell us about how the human brain actually does creativity? Early research suggests that if you scan a brain of someone who's improvising jazz or freestyling rap in a scanner, you'll find that there are 3 key systems involved. The first system involves brain regions that keep our attention locked on the task at hand. These need to be dampened slightly. The second system, deep in the valley that separates the frontal and temporal lobes, draws our attention to interesting things happening around us. That needs to go up in activity. The third system involves 2 areas on the inner surface of the brain, and they're involved in vividly imagining things in our mind's eye. That also needs to be cranked up. When these brain networks are fine-tuned in this way, it seems to produce the perfect conditions for creativity. If you want to put yourself in that state of mind, it's partly to do with loosening your control over what you do. Allow yourself to entertain unusual thoughts. Expose yourself to interesting sights, interesting sounds, and allow your imagination to run free. As children, we get that for free. We are incredibly imaginative, but as we get older, our imagination is quenched. The more time you spend using your imagination, the more its skills develop. So give it a go. I mean, what have you got to lose? Time to go back to Alan, our ex-double glazing fitter who some years ago had a paralysing neural episode which amazingly left him with a talent and appreciation for art he never had before.
Pre-illness times, well, I would have just scooted right round these, but now it's like a magnet pulling me in. I just can feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up.
Alan's creative awakening may well have been due to the damage in brain areas that handle inhibition. The constraints and barriers that we develop through experience that control and limit our thoughts and behaviour. He's come to meet curator Victoria Osborne at Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery. Now that Alan's discovered more about his condition, he's revisiting some of his favourite paintings to see if he can uncover why he's so drawn to them.
I'm pretty sure because my inhibitions disappeared, I've learned to be in touch with my feelings and emotions. You can sense it, can't you? You can sense the love coming from the artist, the way he's portraying her.
He looks at her with such a lot of intensity.
He's spilling out his emotions. To me, it really comes through in the paintings.
These were really revolutionary young artists. They looked at the art of their own day and they found a lot of it trivial and conventional, that they'd lost sight of real emotion and real authenticity in terms of their subjects.
Just like Alan, these artists were able to put aside their inhibitions to produce new works that were a creative leap from anything that had come before them and broke with convention. For Alan, the inhibitions lost after his brain trauma revealed an artistic streak that he thinks may have been suppressed from an early age.
When you're a child, when you're a small child, you know, I've looked at my own kids growing up and they've got no inhibitions about painting. They're so happy that it just pours out of them and they come to you and show you the picture. But of course, as they get to school, the friends are ridiculing, even the teachers. And so you then start to bury it.
Many of us will be familiar with this kind of inhibition that we somehow develop over the course of childhood. But there's another type of inhibition that we have no control over that's thought to be important in artists' brains.
Once you get into the painting, you start to take the drawing further than what is actually really there.
Known as latent inhibition, it's the ability of the brain to filter out certain stimuli around us that aren't important to whatever we're up to at the moment. Helpfully, this stops us being constantly distracted. But artists' brains are thought to do less filtering and pay more attention to things that others might overlook. meaning that when they sit down to create, they have more in their minds to draw upon.
You change what's in front of you almost so that it's not real, but it makes it more real. So you exaggerate some areas.
I take the basics from life, but I exaggerate. I always put feelings from myself and I stylize it. At the end of the day, it could look like a model, but not exactly.
When greeted with a blank canvas, artists become highly focused. It's all about the paper, their subject, and their brain. And they can then use the resource of all their extra observational capacities to create new ideas that surprise and stimulate the rest of us. While the more analytical amongst us are more likely to attempt to recreate an accurate depiction of what we see before us, artists are much more open to breaking with convention, interpreting their subject in ever new and abstract ways. And when they're in the zone, it's a state they find incredibly satisfying.
It is just that immersion into what you're doing and cutting everything else out.
Your brain almost shuts down. There's nothing else. It's just the canvas, the paint, and the person you're painting or the thing you're painting.
I am in a different planet. I'm not here. It's an amazing experience, really, to feel in that way.
Their brains are in a state known as creative flow, where neural activity mirrors the levels observed when we're asleep or daydreaming. But at the same time, the artists are energized and feel completely absorbed in what they're doing. It's a state associated with great creativity, but also with genuine benefits to our health and stress levels. Something Alan is now familiar with.
Recommended to everybody, without the illness, of course. No. Get rid of the inhibitions. Don't worry about what people say or think about your painting. If you listen to your head will be saying, "Whoa, stop! You can't paint." People are going to laugh. But if you paint from the heart and you block out all those noises, then anything's possible.
Creativity is an amazing human trait which sets us apart from other species. We're all creative, capable of generating novel thoughts and new ideas, putting them into action and expressing them in incredibly diverse ways. You may think you can't be creative, but that's probably because your inhibitions are preventing you from reaching your creative potential. And the remarkable story of Alan gives us insight into how much creativity is lurking just under the surface in all our brains.